Monica stood at the gate of the Ortega mansion, her suitcase in one hand, Amanda's small fingers tangled tightly in the other. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway. Monica took a deep breath. This was not just a new house, it was a new beginning. Kwame opened the door before she could knock. He smiled, a tired but genuine smile, and stepped aside to let them in. Amanda tugged at Monica's hand, peeking shyly into the wide, airy living room. The house smelled of fresh flowers and something Monica could only describe as peace. "You're home now," Kwame said softly. Monica managed a small smile and nodded. She set down her suitcase carefully by the stairs, feeling the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. Dinner that evening was quiet. Amanda sat between them, swinging her legs under the table, too shy to speak much. Monica tried to eat, but her stomach was a tight knot. Kwame watched her, not pressing, not asking, just there, steady as always. After dinner, Monica tucked Amanda into a new bed, one with pink sheets and a little stuffed bear waiting on the pillow. Amanda clutched the bear instantly, her eyes wide with wonder. Monica sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Are we staying here forever, Mama?" Amanda whispered. Monica swallowed the lump in her throat. "Yes, baby, forever." Amanda smiled sleepily and closed her eyes. Monica sat there a moment longer, listening to her even breathing, grounding herself in the quiet. Downstairs, Kwame was waiting with 2 mugs of tea. Monica took hers, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. They sat in silence for a long while. "I want you to be comfortable here," Kwame said finally. "This house is yours too." Monica nodded, not trusting her voice. She looked around the living room, the soft lighting, the comfortable couch, the books neatly arranged on the shelves. It was nothing like the chaos she had left behind. It felt safe. It felt unreal. Later, as she lay in bed, Monica stared at the ceiling, her hands resting lightly on her belly. The baby moved, a soft flutter, like the brushing of butterfly wings. She closed her eyes, willing herself to believe she was safe, that this was not temporary. But sleep didn't come easily. Memories surfaced, harsh words, slammed doors, nights spent in fear. She pushed them away, focusing on the steady sound of Amanda breathing in the next room, the comforting weight of the blanket, the faint scent of lavender in the air. This was a new chapter. She had to believe that. She turned on her side, cradling her belly, and whispered into the darkness. "We'll be okay." She wasn't sure if she was speaking to the baby, to Amanda, or to herself, but she needed to believe it. The morning sun filtered gently through the curtains. Monica sat at the edge of the bed, lacing her shoes slowly, carefully. Amanda was still asleep, one arm thrown over her stuffed bear, the covers tangled around her small frame. Downstairs, Monica found Kwame already in the kitchen, brewing coffee. He looked up and smiled as she entered. There was a peace about him, the kind that comes from surviving too much to take simple mornings for granted. "I was thinking," Kwame said, handing her a cup. "We could take Amanda to the park today." Monica took the cup, the warmth seeping into her fingers. "She would love that," she said, her voice low but steady. They sat together at the small breakfast table, sipping quietly. Monica noticed the way the morning light hit the framed photographs on the wall. Kwame as a boy, smiling with missing teeth. Kwame with his parents, his father's hand heavy on his shoulder. This house, Monica thought, was built on memories, good ones. She wondered if she and Amanda would ever feel like more than guests here. At the park, Amanda ran across the grass, her laughter bright and free. Monica sat on a bench, one hand resting on her belly, watching. Kwame sat beside her, his cane leaning against the bench. "She's happy," Kwame said, his eyes following Amanda's small form as she chased a butterfly. "She is," Monica agreed. She smiled, but it felt fragile, like something that could break if she wasn't careful. Kwame turned to look at her. "You can be too, you know." Monica said nothing. Happiness wasn't something she trusted easily. That evening, after Amanda had gone to bed, Monica sat by the window, staring out into the darkness. Kwame sat nearby, a book open in his lap. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said quietly. Monica turned to him. For a moment, she considered denying it, telling him she was fine. But something in his face, in the way he waited, patient and steady, made her stop. "I don't know how to be happy anymore," she whispered. Kwame closed his book and set it aside. "That's okay," he said. "You don't have to be happy right now. You just have to be here." Monica nodded, blinking back sudden tears. She had fought so long, carried so much that the idea of simply being, without fighting, without fear, felt foreign. But maybe that was okay too. Later, lying in bed, Monica listened to the quiet hum of the house. Amanda's soft breathing in the next room. The creak of the old wood under the gentle weight of the wind outside. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the need to run. She didn't feel the need to fight. She simply existed. And for now, that was enough. The days blended into each other like slow-moving clouds. Monica woke early, made breakfast, walked Amanda to the small kindergarten nearby, and returned to a quiet house. Kwame left for the office each morning, his cane tapping softly against the polished floors. Monica spent her mornings cleaning, cooking, trying to stay busy. But as her belly grew heavier, so did the silence. Some afternoons, Monica sat on the porch, a glass of water balanced on her knee, watching the neighborhood children play. Laughter floated through the air, carried by the breeze. She smiled at them, but the smile never reached her eyes. Inside her, something stirred, a sadness she couldn't name. It wasn't loud, it didn't demand attention. It sat quietly at the edge of her heart, waiting. Kwame noticed, of course. He watched her from across the dinner table, from the corner of his eye when she thought he wasn't looking. One evening, as Monica folded Amanda's tiny clothes, Kwame spoke. "You don't have to carry everything alone." Monica kept folding, smoothing the little pink dress in her lap. "I'm not," she said, but the words tasted bitter. Kwame didn't push. He simply stood, crossed the room, and sat beside her, close, but not too close. Monica let out a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I'm tired," she said finally. "Tired in ways I can't explain." Kwame nodded, as if he understood without needing more words. Later that night, Monica sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the faint outline of her toes beyond her swollen belly. She pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the baby move, a small kick, a reminder of life. She should have felt joy, gratefulness, hope. But instead she felt fear. What if she wasn't enough? What if this new life deserved more than a mother who had forgotten how to smile from her soul? Amanda stirred in her sleep, murmuring softly. Monica stood and crossed the hall, peeking into her daughter's room. The little girl slept peacefully, her hand curled under her cheek. Monica leaned against the doorframe, her heart aching. She had to find a way back to herself, for Amanda, for the baby, for Kwame, for herself. She walked back to her room and slipped under the covers, turning on her side, one hand resting protectively over her belly. "I'll try," she whispered. It wasn't a promise, just a hope, fragile but real. And for tonight, it was enough. The mornings grew cooler as the seasons shifted. Monica wrapped a scarf around her neck as she walked Amanda to school. Her steps slower now, heavier. The baby was due in a few months, and her body reminded her of it with every breath, every movement. Kwame had grown busier. The office called him earlier and kept him later. He tried to hide his exhaustion, but Monica saw it. In the way his shoulders sagged when he thought no one was looking. In the way he lingered at the door before leaving each morning, as if reluctant to step back into the weight of his father's business. They spoke less now, not out of anger or distance, but out of wariness. Their words became soft exchanges about groceries, about Amanda's schoolwork, about doctor's appointments. One night, as Monica folded laundry in the living room, Kwame dropped onto the couch with a long sigh. "It's harder than I thought," he said. Monica set down the basket and sat beside him. "You don't have to do it alone," she said, echoing his words to her from weeks before. Kwame smiled weakly. "Sometimes it feels like I do." Monica wanted to tell him she understood, the feeling of carrying too much, of pretending to be strong when every bone in your body ached to rest. But the words stayed trapped behind her teeth. Instead, she leaned her head against his shoulder. For a moment, they sat like that, two tired souls clinging to a small island of quiet. Later that week, Monica visited the foundation she had started. The small building still smelled faintly of paint, the walls bright and hopeful. The girls there greeted her with shy smiles, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and longing, a look Monica knew all too well. She sat with them, teaching them how to sew simple patterns, how to read and write letters. Small things, but important. Each stitch, each word, felt like a thread pulling her back to herself. At home, Amanda thrived. She grew bolder, more confident, making friends easily at school. Monica watched her with a quiet pride, amazed at the resilience children carried so effortlessly. One afternoon, as Monica sat by the window mending one of Amanda's torn dresses, Kwame came home earlier than usual. He stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment before speaking. "I think we should expand the foundation," he said. Monica looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "There's a lot of girls out there who need it," Kwame continued. "More than we can reach now." Monica nodded slowly, the idea settling in her heart like a seed. "I'll think about it," she said. Kwame smiled, and for the first time in days, it wasn't a tired smile. It was real. That night, as Monica lay in bed, she placed Kwame's hand on her belly. The baby kicked gently, a small reminder of life, of hope. Kwame chuckled softly, his eyes lighting up. Monica closed her eyes, breathing in the moment. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The decision to expand the foundation wasn't made overnight. Monica spent long evenings sitting at the kitchen table, drawing simple plans on scraps of paper, notes scribbled in the margins. She thought about the girls, the ones she had already met, the ones she hadn't yet reached. Kwame sat with her sometimes, reading through her ideas, nodding quietly. Amanda colored pictures at the other end of the table, occasionally looking up with a curious smile. Monica's belly grew heavier each day. She moved slower now, her steps careful, deliberate. But inside her, a different kind of energy stirred, a determination she hadn't felt in a long time. She visited the foundation more often, meeting with the girls, speaking softly about what they needed, not what she thought they needed, what they truly needed. "Books," one girl said shyly. "Shoes," another whispered. Monica wrote it all down, every request like a thread weaving into a larger picture. She began to seek donations, small ones at first, old books from neighbors, used sewing machines from church members. Each gift, no matter how small, felt like a victory. Kwame watched her work, quiet pride in his eyes. He didn't interfere. He simply stood behind her, steady and sure, the way a good foundation always is. One afternoon, as Monica sat sorting through piles of donated clothes, she felt a sudden, sharp pain in her back. She paused, breathing through it slowly. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. She pressed her hand to her belly, murmuring soft reassurances. Amanda ran into the room, holding up a drawing, a house with a big sun and stick figures smiling in front of it. "This is us," Amanda said proudly. Monica smiled, her heart full. Later that night, as Monica folded the last of the clothes, she found a small pink dress, barely worn. She held it up, smoothing the fabric, imagining her unborn child in it. She wasn't afraid anymore. The next morning, she sat down with Kwame, a stack of papers between them. "I think it's time to move," she said. "The foundation is growing. We need a bigger space." Kwame nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of the table. "I'll help you look," he said. They spent the weekend visiting empty lots and old buildings, weighing possibilities. Monica took notes, snapped pictures, asked questions. She hadn't felt this alive in years. By the end of the week, they found it. A rundown building on the edge of town, peeling paint and broken windows, but solid bones beneath the decay. Monica stood in the middle of it, Amanda's hand in hers, Kwame's cane tapping against the floor. She looked around, seeing not what it was, but what it could be. "This is it," she said softly. Kwame smiled. Amanda squeezed her hand. Monica closed her eyes, breathing in the musty air, the smell of dust and old wood. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The new building was far from ready. Monica spent hours cleaning dust from the floors, scrubbing old walls, her belly leading the way. Volunteers trickled in. Some curious neighbors, some old friends from church, but progress was slow. Kwame helped where he could, but the business demanded more of his time now. Long hours at the office, late nights poring over numbers that never seemed to balance. Monica didn't complain. She understood. They were both fighting battles in their own corners. Still, the days wore on her. Amanda adapted quickly. She ran through the half-cleaned halls of the foundation, her laughter echoing against the bare walls. Monica smiled as she watched her, but inside, a different feeling took root. Loneliness. One evening, as Monica dragged herself into the house, the smell of burnt food greeted her. Kwame stood in the kitchen, frowning at a pot of something unrecognizable. "I tried to cook," he said sheepishly. Monica chuckled, a real soft laugh. "You tried." They ordered takeout and sat on the couch, boxes of food between them. Amanda talked animatedly about her day at school, her hands waving in the air. Monica nodded along, but her mind wandered. She was tired, more tired than she had ever been. Later, after Amanda went to bed, Monica sat on the porch, the night cool against her skin. Kwame joined her, sitting silently beside her. "You're pushing too hard," he said quietly. Monica shrugged. "It has to get done." Kwame turned to look at her. "At what cost?" She didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, not angry, just heavy. Kwame sighed and stood, his cane tapping softly as he went back inside. Monica stayed a while longer, staring at the stars. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the baby shift. She whispered a promise into the night, that she would make this work, no matter what. The next morning, Monica moved slower. The tiredness had settled deeper into her bones, but she pushed through. There was paint to buy, supplies to organize, volunteers to call. Kwame left early, barely touching his coffee. Amanda waved goodbye from the porch, her backpack bouncing against her small shoulders. Monica stood there a moment longer after they left, the morning sun warming her face. She loved them. She loved this life they were building. But love didn't make it easier. She turned back to the house, her steps heavy, her heart heavier. Some days felt like climbing a mountain barefoot. And today, Monica could already feel the rocks under her feet. It was a gray afternoon when Monica heard the knock at the door. She wiped her hands on a towel, her back aching from a long morning at the foundation. Amanda was at school, Kwame at work. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy. The knock came again, softer this time. Monica opened the door and froze. Alice stood there, thinner, older, but unmistakable. She wore a simple dress, her hair pulled back. In her hands, she clutched a small, battered handbag. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Alice smiled, a small, uncertain thing. "Monica," she said, her voice low, almost timid. I was hoping we could talk." Monica's hand tightened on the doorframe. Memories flashed, sharp words, betrayals that still stung if she thought about them too long. "I don't have anything to say to you," Monica said quietly. Alice shifted her weight, her smile faltering. "Please, just a few minutes." Against her better judgment, Monica stepped aside. Alice entered slowly, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for something familiar. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands twisting the strap of her handbag. "I've changed," Alice said. Life hasn't been easy. I made mistakes, I know that." Monica said nothing, standing near the doorway, arms crossed. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Alice continued. "I just need a job. Anything." Monica stared at her, searching for truth in her face, in her voice. She found none. But she also found no malice, no arrogance, none of the old sharp edges. "I'm running a small foundation now," Monica said slowly. "We teach girls how to sew, read, basic skills." Alice's eyes lit up, hope flickering. "I could help," she said quickly. "I can sew. I can teach." Monica studied her. Could people change? She wasn't sure, but she knew what it was like to need a second chance. "I'll think about it," Monica said finally. Alice nodded eagerly. "Thank you, really." Monica didn't smile. She simply watched as Alice stood, adjusted her handbag, and made her way to the door. As the door closed behind her, Monica leaned her forehead against the wood, closing her eyes. Forgiveness was not easy. Trust was even harder. But sometimes survival demanded both. That night, Monica told Kwame about Alice's visit. He listened quietly, his expression unreadable. "Be careful," was all he said. Monica nodded. She would be. She had learned long ago, kindness didn't mean blindness, and this time she would not be caught unaware. The next morning, Monica sat at the kitchen table, staring at her tea as it cooled. Amanda chattered about her homework, her small fingers breaking pieces of bread onto her plate. Kwame kissed Monica lightly on the forehead before leaving for work, his touch lingering a little longer than usual. Monica smiled faintly, but her mind was elsewhere. Alice. Could she be trusted? Or was this another trick, another wound waiting to happen? Later that day, Monica sat in the foundation's small office, the dusty fan clicking softly above her head. She reviewed applications for new volunteers, Alice's name among them. She tapped her pen against the table, thinking, maybe people could change, or maybe they just became better liars. In the end, Monica decided to give her a trial. 1 week. Closely monitored, carefully measured. When she called Alice to tell her, the woman sounded relieved, almost giddy with gratitude. Thank you, Monica. You won't regret it, Alice promised. Monica wished she could believe her. Alice started the following Monday. She arrived early, dressed modestly, her hair neatly braided. She worked quietly, showing the girls how to sew simple hems, mending torn shirts with steady fingers. Monica watched from a distance, noting every interaction, every glance. The girls warmed to Alice quickly. They laughed at her jokes, listened intently as she corrected their stitches. Monica stood at the door, arms folded, heart uneasy. One afternoon, as Monica sorted fabrics in the storage room, Alice approached her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me a chance." Monica nodded, not looking up. "I mean it," Alice added. "I was cruel before, I know that. I was jealous, angry. I didn't think you deserved what you had." Monica froze, the words slicing through the air. Alice shifted awkwardly, fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. "I was wrong." Monica looked at her then, really looked, at the worn lines around her mouth, the shadows under her eyes. Maybe people did change. Or maybe they just learned to hide better. Either way, Monica nodded again. "We'll see," she said. That night, Monica lay awake long after Kwame's breathing had deepened into sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her mind restless. She wanted to believe in second chances. She wanted to believe people could be better. But the scars on her heart reminded her, trust was not a gift, it was a risk. And risks, Monica knew too well, didn't always pay off. The house felt heavier these days, not with noise or arguments, but with a silence that pressed against the walls, thick and uncomfortable. Kwame came home later now, sometimes too tired to talk. He would eat quietly, kiss Amanda goodnight, and collapse onto the couch with a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him. Monica tried not to mind. She understood how hard he was working. The business was struggling. Bills stacked up faster than payments came in. The weight on his shoulders was visible in every line of his face. But understanding didn't make the loneliness easier to bear. One evening, Monica sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the foundation's accounts. The numbers didn't add up the way she hoped. Donations had slowed. Supplies cost more than before. The building needed repairs, leaks in the roof, cracks in the walls. Across from her, Kwame scrolled through his phone, his face grim. Without thinking, Monica sighed, a small, weary sound. Kwame looked up, his eyes tired. "Something wrong?" "No," Monica said automatically. Then after a pause, "Everything." Kwame set down his phone, rubbing his forehead. "We're all tired, Monica." "I know," she said quietly. They sat there, the silence growing thick between them. Finally, Kwame stood. "I'm going to bed." Monica watched him go, the ache in her chest deepening. She finished balancing the accounts alone, her pen scratching softly against the paper. Later, as she lay in bed, Monica listened to the rhythm of Kwame's breathing. She closed her eyes, willing herself to rest, but sleep didn't come. The next morning, the tension lingered. They spoke little over breakfast. Amanda sensed it too, her usual chatter muted, her smiles smaller. At the foundation, Monica found herself snapping at small mistakes, her patience worn thin. Alice kept her distance, sensing the storm in Monica's quiet. In the afternoon, Monica sat on the porch, watching Amanda ride her small bicycle in circles on the driveway. Kwame pulled up in his car, stepping out with slow, heavy movements. He didn't smile. Monica didn't either. He sat beside her without a word. For a long while, they just sat, two people side by side, the distance between them wider than the porch itself. Finally, Monica spoke, her voice low. "I miss us." Kwame stared ahead, his jaw tightening. "So do I," he said. They didn't say more. Sometimes words weren't enough to mend what silence had broken. Amanda rode past them, laughing as the wind caught her hair. Monica watched her daughter, her heart aching with a longing she couldn't name. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing Kwame's hand. He didn't pull away. It wasn't a solution, it wasn't even a promise. But it was something. And for now, it was all they had. It was a Thursday afternoon when Monica noticed the numbers didn't add up. She sat in the foundation's small office, a stack of receipts and donation logs spread out before her. Amanda was at school. The girls were busy sewing in the next room, their laughter drifting down the hall. Monica frowned, running her finger down the ledger again. Supplies that should have been purchased were missing. Receipts were altered. Small changes, but enough to raise questions. Her heart sank. She sat back in the chair, staring at the papers, her mind racing. She thought of Alice, how she had been so eager, so helpful. How she had stayed late when no one else would, offering to lock up, to handle petty cash. Monica closed the ledger, her hands trembling slightly. She needed proof. For the next few days, Monica watched quietly. She counted the cash herself at the end of the day, noted the supplies. She observed Alice, the way she lingered by the donation box, how her eyes flickered when she thought no one was looking. On Friday evening, Monica stayed late, hiding in the small office behind the storage room. She left the donation box on the table, unlocked, tempting. She waited. The minutes dragged, then footsteps, soft, careful. Monica held her breath. Through the thin crack of the door, she saw Alice approach the table, glance around, and slip a hand into the box. She pulled out a few bills, tucking them quickly into her pocket. Monica's chest tightened, not with anger, but with a deep, weary sadness. She stepped out, her voice quiet but firm. Alice. Alice froze, her hand still halfway to her pocket. Monica said nothing else. She just stood there, waiting. Alice's face twisted, a mixture of guilt and defiance flashing across it. "I needed it," Alice said finally, her voice sharp. "You have more than enough. You wouldn't even miss it." Monica's hands clenched at her sides, but her voice stayed calm. "That money isn't mine. It belongs to the girls, to their future." Alice shrugged, a bitter smile curling her lips. "Future? For them? You're wasting your time." Monica took a step closer, her voice steady. "Maybe, but it's not your place to decide." Alice laughed once, a harsh, humorless sound. "People don't change, Monica," she said. "Not really." Monica stared at her, feeling a pang of something she couldn't name. Pity, perhaps, or regret. "Maybe not," Monica said softly, "but I have." Alice's smile faltered. Monica pointed to the door. "Leave." Alice hesitated, then turned and walked out, her steps quick and hard against the floor. Monica stood alone in the quiet, the sound of the girls laughing still echoing faintly from down the hall. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. Forgiveness was a gift. But trust had to be earned, and Alice had lost it. The next morning, Monica arrived early at the foundation. The air was crisp, the sky still a pale blue. She stood by the door for a moment, key in hand, gathering herself. Inside, the girls worked as usual, chatting softly, bent over their sewing projects. They didn't know what had happened the night before. Monica wanted to keep it that way. She smiled at them, a small, steady smile, and walked to her office. Later, she sat at her desk, staring out the small window. Thoughts swirled in her mind. Memories of the girl she once was, desperate and angry, not so different from Alice. The world had been cruel to them both. But somewhere along the way, Monica had chosen a different path. Forgiveness was never easy. It wasn't clean or simple. It didn't erase the past. But Monica believed in it, not because others deserved it, but because she did. Carrying anger, holding on to bitterness, it only made the world heavier. Still, she had learned. Forgiveness did not mean opening the same door twice. Kwame called her during his lunch break. His voice was calm, steady. "Did you do it?" he asked. "Yes," Monica said simply. There was a pause. "You okay?" "I am," she said. Another pause. "I'm proud of you," Kwame said softly. Monica smiled, the tension in her chest easing just a little. That afternoon, Monica gathered the girls and spoke gently to them about honesty, about trust. She didn't mention Alice. There was no need. The lesson was bigger than one person. Afterward, Monica sat alone in the office, sipping tea that had long gone cold. She thought of Alice, wondered where she had gone, what choices she would make now. Monica wished her well, silently, sending a small prayer into the heavy afternoon air. Amanda's school bus pulled up outside. Monica watched as her daughter hopped off, her backpack bouncing, her hair messy from a day full of adventure. Amanda ran up the path and into her mother's arms. Monica held her tightly, feeling the soft weight of her, the simple, unquestioning love. Forgiveness wasn't for Alice. It was for moments like this, moments where Monica could hold her daughter close without the weight of old bitterness pulling her down. That night, Monica sat on the porch with Kwame, Amanda asleep inside. They didn't talk much. The stars stretched across the sky, endless and patient. Kwame reached for her hand, his fingers warm against the cool night air. Monica leaned her head against his shoulder, breathing in the quiet. The world was still hard. Life was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Monica felt light, and she knew she had made the right choice. The first sign came in a thin envelope, A notice from the bank, tucked between Amanda's drawings on the kitchen counter. Monica opened it slowly, her fingers trembling. Past due. Final notice. She stared at the words, the weight of them pressing into her chest. Kwame came home later that night, his face drawn, his eyes shadowed. He dropped his keys on the counter and sat heavily at the table. We lost a big contract, he said, his voice flat. Monica folded the notice and set it aside, out of sight but not out of mind. They sat in silence, the house too still, too loud with what wasn't being said. Days turned into weeks, bills piled up, the foundation's donations slowed even more. People tightened their wallets in hard times. Monica understood. She didn't blame them. She spent her days stretching every dollar, making food last longer, finding cheaper fabric for the girls' sewing lessons. She smiled when she had to, reassured Amanda when she asked why they didn't go out anymore, why there were no new toys. Kwame grew quieter. He worked longer hours, chasing clients, chasing hope. Monica watched him shrink into himself, the lines around his eyes deepening, his shoulders bowing under invisible weight. One evening they sat at the table, Amanda coloring in the next room. Monica pushed a small stack of unpaid bills toward him. We need a plan, she said. Kwame rubbed his face with his hands. I know. Monica's voice was gentle but firm. We can't keep going like this. Kwame looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time in what felt like weeks. I'm trying, he said, and in his voice, Monica heard not anger, but desperation. I know, she whispered. I see you. He looked away, his jaw tight. We could sell the car, Monica offered. Kwame shook his head. It's not enough. Monica hesitated, then said the words she had been holding back. The foundation? Maybe it's time to scale back, at least for a while. Kwame's head snapped up, shock flashing across his face. He knew how much it meant to her, how much of herself she had poured into it. But Monica only smiled, tired but sure. We'll find another way, she said. Kwame reached across the table, covering her hand with his. They sat like that for a long moment. Two people, worn but not broken. Later that night, after Amanda was asleep, Monica stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the faint movements of the baby. Life was still growing. Hope was still possible. But she knew now, survival wasn't about stubbornness. It was about knowing when to let go, when to hold tighter, and when to find a different path altogether. She turned from the window and climbed into bed beside Kwame, their bodies curling instinctively toward each other. Sleep came slowly, but it came. And in the silence, Monica dreamed not of easy roads, but of strength, the kind born from walking the hardest ones together. The decision to scale back the foundation wasn't easy. Monica spent a quiet afternoon packing away books, folding chairs, locking up sewing machines. The girls helped without questions, their faces downcast but understanding. We'll be back, Monica promised them softly. They nodded, but their eyes said they had learned not to trust promises too easily. That evening, Monica sat with Kwame on the porch, the air cool against their skin. Amanda played nearby, her laughter a welcome sound in the heavy dusk. Kwame sipped his tea, his gaze distant. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. Monica turned to him, surprised. For what? For not protecting what we built, he said, his voice low. Monica shook her head gently. You did. We both did. Kwame didn't answer, but his hand found hers in the dark. In the following days, they made changes. Monica sold unused furniture online, items she once thought she couldn't live without. Kwame renegotiated contracts, swallowing his pride, asking for extensions, offering discounts. It wasn't easy, but slowly the cracks stopped widening. One afternoon, Monica found Amanda sitting at the kitchen table, coloring with fierce concentration. She peeked over her daughter's shoulder. A picture of their house, the sun high in the sky, their family standing hand in hand. Monica smiled, her heart tightening. Children didn't measure happiness in money or possessions. They measured it in love, in safety, in laughter that could still ring through a half-empty house. Later that week, a friend from church visited Monica. She had heard about the foundation's troubles and offered Monica a small grant, enough to keep the bare essentials running until better days came. Monica accepted it, her voice thick with gratitude. It wasn't much, but it was enough. In the evenings, after Amanda was asleep, Monica and Kwame sat together, planning small steps forward. They talked about reopening the foundation slowly, Fewer girls, smaller classes, more community involvement. They didn't dream of big things anymore. They dreamed of steady ones. One night, Kwame leaned back in his chair, looking at Monica with something close to awe. "You're the strongest person I know," he said. Monica laughed softly. "I don't feel strong," Kwame smiled. "That's how I know you are." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining easily now, like they had remembered something important they had forgotten. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, whispering promises of change. Inside, Monica closed her eyes and leaned against Kwame's shoulder. They weren't who they used to be. They were something better. Not untouched by hardship, but shaped by it. And slowly, carefully, they were learning to build again. The land was small, a forgotten corner at the edge of the town, fenced with rusted iron and choked with weeds. But when Monica first stepped onto it, she saw something more. She saw a future. Kwame stood beside her, Amanda clinging to his hand, squinting against the sun. "It needs work," Kwame said, kicking a patch of dry earth with his shoe. Monica smiled, her heart steady. "So did we," she said. They bought the land with what little savings they had left, scraping together loans and small donations from friends who still believed. The plans were modest: a single building, 2 classrooms, a small playground. Nothing grand. But Monica didn't need grand. She needed real. The days blurred into weeks of hard work. Monica met with builders, negotiated prices, begged for discounts. She chose paint colors and floor tiles, simple furniture, sturdy desks. Amanda watched it all with wide, curious eyes. Sometimes she helped, handing Monica nails or holding a paintbrush too large for her small hands. Kwame came when he could, between business meetings and late nights at the office. His body moved slower these days, but his spirit stayed fierce. There were setbacks, of course. Delays in delivery, unexpected costs. Nights when Monica lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they had made a mistake. But each morning she got up. Each morning she tried again. The community began to notice. Mothers stopped by to ask questions. Fathers offered to help carry materials, fix broken fences. Slowly, the forgotten lot began to transform. Walls rising, colors brightening, laughter returning. One afternoon, Monica stood in what would soon be the first classroom. The walls were bare, the floor dusty, but the windows caught the sunlight just right, spilling gold across the room. She closed her eyes, imagining rows of girls sitting at desks, pencils in hand, dreams unfolding quietly in the safe space she had fought to create. Kwame walked in, brushing sawdust from his pants. "We're almost there," he said. Monica nodded, emotion catching in her throat. Amanda burst in behind him, her shoes dusty, her face flushed with excitement. "Can I have a desk too, Mama?" she asked. Monica laughed, a real laugh that filled the empty room. "You'll have the first one," she promised. That night, Monica sat on the porch, watching the stars blink awake in the sky. Kwame sat beside her, their hands brushing but not quite holding. "You think it'll work?" he asked. Monica didn't answer right away. She thought of all the times she had doubted, all the times fear had tried to choke her. "It already has," she said finally. Kwame smiled, the kind of smile that spoke of shared battles and hard-won peace. Monica leaned her head against his shoulder, closing her eyes. The school wasn't finished, neither were they. But they were close, closer than they had ever been. And that was enough. The first day of the school's opening was modest. There was no grand ceremony, no ribbon cutting, no important guests. Just a handful of parents, a few curious neighbors, and a scattering of children in worn shoes and oversized uniforms. Monica stood by the entrance, smoothing down Amanda's hair, her hands trembling slightly. Kwame stood nearby, holding the baby boy who had arrived just a month before. A small, quiet bundle in his arms. Amanda clutched a new notebook to her chest, her eyes wide with excitement. Monica knelt down to her level. "Ready?" she asked. Amanda nodded fiercely. Inside the classrooms, the walls were bare save for a few hand-drawn posters. The desks were mismatched, some second-hand, some built by local carpenters. But the sunlight poured in, and the air smelled of new beginnings. Fresh paint, clean wood, and a hint of hope. The children filed in, chattering softly. Monica watched them take their seats, their faces nervous, curious, brave. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around her. Later, as the children recited their first alphabet song, Monica sat at the back of the classroom, the baby sleeping against her chest, Kwame sitting quietly beside her. She looked around, at the children, at Amanda writing carefully in her new notebook, at Kwame smiling softly without words. This was home. Not the walls, not the desks, not even the building. This, the laughter, the learning, the life, this was what they had fought for. The wounds of the past still ached sometimes. Monica could feel them, old scars that tugged when the days grew heavy, but they no longer defined her. One afternoon, after the school day ended, Monica sat on the porch steps, the baby gurgling happily in her lap. Amanda played in the dusty yard with the other children, her laughter loud and fearless. Kwame joined her, sitting down with a quiet grunt. He stretched his legs, the cane resting beside him. They sat in companionable silence, watching the sun dip low, casting long shadows. "I'm proud of you," Kwame said after a while. Monica smiled without turning. "I'm proud of us." Kwame reached over and took her free hand, squeezing it gently. The past would always be a part of them. The pain, the betrayals, the nights they thought they wouldn't survive, all woven into their story. But it wasn't the end, it was the foundation. And now, on that foundation, they were building something new, something better. The seasons shifted slowly, the days growing warmer, the air heavier with the scent of blooming flowers and sun-warmed earth. The school grew too, not just in numbers but in spirit. More children came, more laughter echoed through the simple hallways. Monica learned their names, their dreams, their fears. She saw herself in them, the little girl who had once believed the world had no room for her, no kindness left. But here, in this small place built from brokenness, there was room. There was kindness. One afternoon, Monica stood at the back of the classroom, her newborn son sleeping in a sling across her chest. Amanda sat at a desk near the front, raising her hand proudly to answer a question. The sunlight framed her like a promise. Monica smiled. After class, Amanda ran up, holding a wrinkled piece of paper. "I made this for you, Mama," she said. It was a drawing. Their family standing in front of the school, the sun shining, the words "My Mama's School" written in large wobbly letters. Monica took it, her throat tight. "Thank you, baby," she whispered. That evening, after the children had gone and the classrooms were quiet again, Monica and Kwame sat on the steps of the school, watching the sky fade into a soft purple. The baby slept between them. Amanda dozed with her head on Monica's lap. Kwame leaned back on his elbows, looking up at the stars beginning to appear. "We did it," he said quietly. Monica nodded. "We're doing it," she corrected, her voice soft but firm. Kwame smiled and Monica reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining easily, naturally. The road ahead would still be hard. There would be bills to pay, problems to solve, bad days to weather. But Monica wasn't afraid anymore. She had learned life didn't promise easy. It didn't promise fair. But sometimes, if you fought hard enough, if you held on long enough, it gave you something better. Something real. Monica looked out at the school, at the small garden Amanda had planted, at the cracked sidewalk they still hadn't fixed. It wasn't perfect. Neither was she. But both were more beautiful for their cracks. Monica closed her eyes, breathing in the cool evening air, the scent of earth and hope. And in the quiet, she whispered the truth she had come to believe with all her heart. Sometimes the most beautiful lives are built from the deepest wounds. And she meant it. Thank you for taking the time to follow this heartfelt journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue spreading stories that inspire. See you in the next episode.